Can you start with the importance of the partnership between UC Berkeley and LSE and what it aims to achieve?
So we're really excited about this partnership. We've been talking about this over the last year and it's come to fruition. The first conference in this series was held today in London, and the second one will be held at Berkeley, and the third one in Dhaka. And we think it's really important because this is a wonderful opportunity to really showcase Bangladesh. Both universities really try to understand the region, just beyond India, really trying to understand the various countries in South Asia, and specifically LSE and Berkeley both have a strong focus on Bangladesh. So we're really excited about this partnership.
I think, and also what the summits do is both our universities, LSE and Berkeley, have a lot of in-house expertise on Bangladesh. And then we are able to, because of networks and because of the kind of institutions we are, to attract the best international scholars on Bangladesh. So what we are creating in these summits are really specially curated discussions of the very highest quality that showcases but also generates very interesting discussions that haven't happened before. And through the day, what we found was avenues for further research coming out. So the fact that we are universities with students involved, these will become resources for further research as well.
With Bangladesh performing well in most socioeconomic indicators, gender equality is improved, access to healthcare is best among the other South Asian neighbors. What makes it different from these neighboring countries?
So, one of the things is actually, even though Bangladesh has been doing well, in fact, there is oftentimes not a lot of attention paid to the country, or it's often very negative. So I think that was kind of one of the framing, the way we frame this series is to really talk about these positive aspects of Bangladesh that are a reality, but they're sort of lesser known or lesser studied or lesser understood.
And it's also in the region the youngest nation, right? And it's punching above its weight on a number of measures, as you said. It has a very young constitution. It continues to have a lot of dynamics around the different sectors, which are of course peculiar to Bangladesh. And at the moment, the fact that they are contiguous with Myanmar has created a new kind of crisis, which Bangladesh is on the coalface of. And through all of this, what makes Bangladesh special is that because of its size and because of the enormous amount of good research that's been conducted there, it becomes a sort of petri dish for understanding issues that are complex but are also common and commonly shared with other South Asian countries. So by studying, say, the constitutional crisis, by studying abuses of civil rights, or by increased radicalization, or by the refugee crisis, these are issues that are relevant to other parts of the region, indeed to other parts of the world. So actually studying Bangladesh is, yes, about creating knowledge about Bangladesh, but it's also creating comparative knowledge in social science about the rest of the world.
You mentioned human rights, and Bangladesh has been in the highlight for human rights issues. How can we reconcile these very issues of freedom of speech, human rights, civil societies, against the backdrop of the growth story that we just talked about?
Well, I think this is, again, the growth story is a growth story that's not peculiar to Bangladesh. Bangladesh allows us to see this curious version of neoliberalism, which in South Asia is of a very particular flavor, where on the one hand there are jobless growth figures, there is also an increase in welfare expenditure. So a lot of indicators go up, and yet the flip side of that same story is in fact a clamping down on civil liberties. It's almost the price that countries are paying. And there is actually no way to reconcile them. But the fact that it's happening has to be recognized, and I think what we need to do as scholars is to look at the costs of that increased performance on development indicators. What cost is it coming at? And so, for instance, we had a panel on civil society today where we were looking precisely at what the capacity of the non-state actors were over the last, say, 30 years and how it's changing, and how there is a decreased vibrancy in that space with the rise of these rather draconian amendments to the constitution, draconian new laws, which are shutting down debate. Now, again, this is not just Bangladesh, this is happening elsewhere in the region. This idea of an inability or an unwillingness of governments to deal with dissent is a common problem. And by looking at Bangladesh, again, as I said, we are hoping to understand what's happening elsewhere.
This question is for you. Can you talk about the legacy of the Subir and Mahima A Centre and what's the vision going ahead?
So the center was established in 2014 very generously from the Subir and Malini Chowdhury Foundation. And the idea was really to put Bangladesh, make it a serious study, have a serious focus. This is the only center that focuses, solely on Bangladesh. And, the vision is really to how we can bring in, researchers, students, faculty, how we can encourage the study of Bangladesh, and how we can create collaborations between the University, UC Berkeley, with universities in the region, in Bangladesh. So we've done that over the last several years. We've created partnerships, we've created research collaborations, we've invited researchers to Berkeley, and we also sort of, the other goal is to really showcase kind of innovative research, and to, the idea of what the summit did also is to kind of change the narrative around Bangladesh.
And finally, the LSE South Asia Centre looks at the region. So how do you place the vision for Bangladesh studies within the agenda for the centre and for the region?
Well, LSE is one of the few universities in the world that has a tremendously high concentration of really excellent research going on. In Bangladesh, it's not a well-known fact, so one of the first things the South Asia Centre does is actually to highlight this. We have 3 very senior faculty, we have junior faculty, we have postdocs and grad students producing new research, and we have these individual academic collaborations between academics based at LSE and Bangladesh. And the South Asia Centre, because it's very committed to looking at each country in some detail, we want to build on this tremendous body of work that already exists to create more conversations, to generate new research agendas, start new research projects, which will build on this collaborative potential of the partnership. And also, I think it is very important to study Bangladesh in a comparative perspective within South Asia. So this is the advantage of having a South Asia Centre where you can pay individual attention to specific countries, but also to create conversations across the region where we see, say, Islamic radicalization. What does it look like in Pakistan compared to India, compared to Bangladesh, compared to Myanmar, compared to Sri Lanka? Unless we begin to see this, China's relationship with each of these regions is very specific, and yet there are commonalities. So there are themes that are relevant to the region, which we want to create, and the centre is very committed to it. And finally, I think as social scientists, any good social science is located somewhere. We look at very big issues, but those big issues have to be examined closely by locating them in a particular place. But by locating them in a particular place, we are actually generating insights that have comparative value and teach us something about concepts like democracy, citizenship, radicalization, climate change. These are big issues that are global issues. But by examining them in South Asia, we're really contributing to that global knowledge.